Babe of the day. Babe of the day. Sabrina. When God decided to make Sabrina a girl, he didn't want there to be any questions about it. Good grief. She was one of England's blonde bombshell actresses. Although she wasn't England's first girl of that sort, she's the one that stands out most for me. If there was anyone who could have given Jayne Mansfield a run for her money, it would have been Sabrina. She had a host of cute nicknames like Britain's Jayne Mansfield, Britain's Finest Hourglass, and, my personal favorite, England's Maid of the Mountains. Nice. Sabrina was born as Norma Ann Sykes. It's amusing to note that Marilyn Monroe, the chief blonde bombshell from America, was born as Norma Jean Mortensen. There's just something about that name. Sabrina's dad was an engineer, and her mom was a seamstress. In her school days, she was a champion swimmer and won several medals. At the age of 16, she moved to London where she worked as a waitress, housemaid, sold homemade jewelry to local stores, and did some moonlighting as a nude model. She was discovered by the famous photographer Russell Gay. Sabrina got put on the 5 of spades and a deck of nude playing cards. It was a humble beginning, but it didn't take long for England to notice her talents. To make it perfectly clear, Sabrina was not an astounding actress, but that's okay. She wasn't wanted for those purposes. Sabrina was simply meant to be a glamorous, knockout model, and she succeeded. Whenever she was chosen for a TV show or movie, it was on that purpose alone. Sabrina realized that and didn't seem to have any problem with it or aspirations for anything she couldn't do. Privately, she was very honest about not having any talent. She was simply an on-screen beauty queen. Personally, I think critics of the time, and even Sabrina herself, were a little bit too hard on her for not having talent. She had charm, and she did have some delivery. I do think that she should have been handed roles that were maybe not so dramatically taxing on her. She could have played a housewife in a sitcom. She could have played a secretary. And she could have done that on a regular basis. And I think she would have found her footing. She would have become more comfortable in front of the camera. But unfortunately, that never happened. In 1955, she got her start in show business with the BBC sitcom Before Your Very Eyes. It starred the comedian Arthur Askey, and Sabrina was hired to play a dumb blonde. As a matter of fact, Askey gave her the later legendary stage name. She was only 18 and 19 at this time, but she certainly looked a bit older due to circumstances. These shows are quite funny, and BBC promoted her as the bosomy blonde who didn't talk. That's a lie, because she did talk in the show, and in her other roles, just not that much. Sabrina had a strong Lancashire accent that was deemed unattractive by show business standards, and she was working hard on losing it. Her agent even worked up a backstory that she was from Wales in a way to try to excuse it. That held her back from a lot of big speaking parts early on. Over the years, though, Sabrina's speaking voice improved markedly, and she sounded very pretty. Sabrina was on the show through 1956. This was early British TV, and only some episodes survived on Kinescope. Askey was purposely looking for a girl to play a dumb cluck, and, in his autobiography, he straight up said that she had a lovely face and figure, but could not act, sing, dance, or even walk properly. These might seem like hard words, but they were more honest than anything. Even Sabrina knew she had no business being on national TV, especially at that time. Her and Askey were friends. She would maybe say one line in an episode and walk around a lot in a tight dress. That was about it, but she became a major female celebrity. 1955 was her year, and Sabrina made it big. Pun intended. She was on the game show Double Your Money, and even had her own short film, At Home with Sabrina. She also got her first film role that year in Stock Car, playing Trixie. Yeah, she could pass for a Trixie. Sabrina became a pop culture reference very quickly, with comedians usually making some reference to her bust. She even became a part of the British lexicon, and whenever someone said Sabrina, or called something Sabrina, everyone knew what it meant. Hey, she wasn't shy about it. Sabrina had steady movie work throughout the 50s and 60s, but she didn't do much in most of them. She was always played off as a model on camera, and that's it. You weren't watching Sabrina in a movie or TV show for a rich, dramatic experience. She was fun, she was sexy, and that's it. Honestly, film and television could use a Sabrina or two nowadays because the glamour from live action is gone. Although acting quality is admirable, and there are some good actresses out there right now, a part of seeing someone on camera is spectacle, and the audience needs to have something to see. Otherwise, you might as well read a book. Sabrina was definitely an overnight sensation, and for the rest of the 50s and most of the 60s, she was in a number of high-profile relationships including Frank Sinatra, Sean Connery, Joe DiMaggio, and the writer Abby Mann, to name a few. She was even named as the adulteress in a 1958 lawsuit brought against her by actress Kim Ryan, wife of actor Paul Carpenter. Sabrina, however, had always denied this. Since Before Your Very Eyes, Sabrina held an association with Arthur Askey throughout her show business career. She was in 2 of his comedy movies, and even appeared on his episode of This Is Your Life, long after she quit show business. Most of all, people remembered this duo, so it was always in the public consciousness. She was undoubtedly grateful to the man for kickstarting her TV and movie career. Although she generally wasn't taken seriously as an actress, beginning in 1962, she started appearing in some non-comedy roles. That year, she was in the sexploitation crime movie Satan in High Heels, in a small role as herself. In 1965, she was finally in an American production, the horror movie House of the Black Death, where she played a belly dancer. You would have thought that once she starred in American productions, she would have become a huge name, but it just didn't play out that way. In 1967, she played Millie in an episode of the Tarzan TV series. That same year, she became the leading lady in the Western comedy movie The Phantom Gunslinger. Although it wasn't a serious role, it was the first time she played a definite leading lady, and she played opposite of Joy Donahue. For some reason, the movie was not released until 1970, becoming Sabrina's last movie to be released. Sabrina's last actual film was the 1969 horror movie The Ice House. Although it was still a smaller role, it was a significant role in the movie. She played the dancer Venus DeMarco, who was strangled to death by a disgruntled ex-cop. Venus was the first murder victim in a series of murders. The Ice House has an interesting history. Production had started in early 1967. Jayne Mansfield was all set to play Venus DeMarco. When Jayne died in a car accident that June, filming was postponed. Over the next year, the director, Stuart E. McGowan, offered the role to every surviving bombshell actress he could think of, including Mamie Van Doren, Diana Dors, and Joy Lansing, all of whom turned it down. This is kind of surprising, because those actresses weren't noted for turning down a lot of acting parts. They would do darn near anything, and there wasn't anything that terrible about this movie or that part. Eventually, Sabrina was given the role. Already by 1967, Sabrina was slowing down. You would think that, being a recent transplant to America, she would have wanted to keep busier now that she was getting into bigger Hollywood projects. That year, she had gotten married to Harold Melsheimer, a wealthy gynecologist and obstetrician. By 1969, she was entirely done acting. Sadly, by 1974, she was also divorced. Sabrina found her husband to be totally humorless. She later lamented about marrying a German immigrant. You would think she would have gotten some great financial gain out of the divorce, but she didn't. Sabrina ended up moving in with her mother in a small, single-story building in North Hollywood. This would be her home for the rest of her long life. Her heart was never into acting anyway. She did it for fun and profit, but it didn't seem to be worth her time anymore. Had she stuck it out for a few more years, though, she probably would have been more financially secure than she was. Sabrina was still young and beautiful by the late 1970s, but her large, 41-inch breasts were giving her tremendous back problems. It was the thing that made her famous, but it was also her biggest detriment. In 1988, she finally agreed to a back surgery at the Dayton General Hospital. The surgeon was negligent and botched the operation, leaving Sabrina wheelchair-bound for the rest of her life. This was such a pity, and it forced her entirely out of the public eye. She won a lawsuit for just $190,000 and required full-time care at her mother's house, where she became a recluse. Until she died in 2016, she lived in regular pain and was dependent on medication. Despite this, friends remember her as being a very nice and genuine person. Sabrina deserved a better ending than what she got, but stories like hers are not uncommon in Hollywood. She was very fortunate, however, to have had her instant and meteoric rise to fame and, for the better part of 2 decades, lived like a queen. Most women never get that opportunity. Although traditional talent like acting, singing, and dancing wasn't Sabrina's bag, her real talent was projecting great beauty and a glamorous lifestyle. That's what still exists on photos and film. And that's what makes Sabrina a babe of the day. Babe of the day.